Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for your presentation. C'était extrêmement intéressant. On a eu pas mal de questions. We had a lot of questions during your talk, so I will try to group the question. And no, it's okay, it's okay. I am okay. Thank you very much. I sit a lot. We had question about prevention. How do you finance prevention in your system? Et aussi pour Madame Monod, autour de la prévention dans ce que vous avez montré sur les projets pour le canton de Vaud, comment est-ce que cette prévention va être financée? Et puis, il y a une deuxième question autour de la prévention. Est-ce qu'on a des preuves scientifiques que investir dans la prévention a un impact sur la réduction des coûts? So some scientific proof that if you invest on prevention, you will have a decrease of the health cost. So I don't know who will start to answer. You. Well, you just take a microphone, please. No, you take a microphone. Yeah, okay.
Is it on?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me?
Right.
Yeah. Is that on?
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, the whole Kaiser system is set up for prevention because we're collecting the money up front, and it's in our interest to keep you healthy. So you don't. It's not like there's a dedicated percentage that goes to prevention. But some of the ways that we implement it is every time you see a doctor. Well, first you see their assistant before the doctor comes in, and you will be asked your weight, your blood pressure, do you have a temperature, do you smoke, how much do you exercise, what do you do for exercise, and sometimes other questions. And these are all what we call vital signs, so that when the doctor comes in and sees that you're smoking or you're not exercising, it doesn't matter if that doctor is a neurologist or a primary care doctor. One of the questions will be, what can we get you to do to start exercising 30 minutes a day? Because that in itself, you probably all know, kind of cuts in half the risk of almost every disease. It's quite amazing. So we do that. The other thing that when people come in, we're looking at whether they're overdue for their cancer screenings or their diabetes eye exam. It's all in the record, and often the doctor's assistant is empowered to schedule those appointments or to say walk down the hall and get a flu shot. So because the record is integrated, we can see what the gaps in care are that need to be filled that are really preventive measures.
Yeah.
On va laisser parler Madame Monod, je vous passe la parole. Oh, you can go. Go. No, it's okay. Oui,
non, je pense que le système de capitation, forcément, il permet aux acteurs de repenser toute la trajectoire et tout le bénéfice de la mise en place de mesures de prévention qui sont évidemment efficaces, parce que plus on intervient tôt et plus on a des bénéfices finalement sur le long terme. Dans l'attente d'un changement de financement par capitation, auquel on croit aussi et qui devra certainement être mixte, peut-être pas uniquement de la capitation, eh bien, c'est de renforcer l'identification aussi dans les prestataires, que ce soit la médecine de premier recours, les GP ou les soins à domicile typiquement, qui font des mesures préventives mais qui finalement ne l'identifient pas comme étant des mesures de prévention. On est beaucoup on compense un manque, mais on est peu dans le prospectif. Qu'est-ce qui est aujourd'hui important de faire, dans quelle vision prospective? Donc il y a quelque chose aussi de l'ordre de la définition de la prévention qui doit aussi évoluer.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, is this one on? Yeah. My accent hasn't improved, I apologize. Just to go for the value-based care approach, there is such a thing as a value index score used in a number of those schemes. And it's made of a number of domains, but one of those domains is, just as Molly mentioned, is about screening. How effectively are you screening your population? And that includes screening not only those people who attend, who appear at the provider, but it's screening, it's encouraging providers to go out and actually find the people they haven't seen for a year and screen those. And I think it's that proactive go out and screen element that really makes a significant difference. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything that you have said, and I just a short comment. For instance, we rely a lot on technology, and we have a very active healthcare portal for patient engagement. And nearly 35% of our citizens are already using that portal. And it's not only a new way for them to interact with the doctors and nurses, but also a way for them to report and to be proactive themselves. So it's critical for patient engagement. And patient engagement is it's a critical element when it comes to healthcare promotion and prevention. And of course, we invest money and time of our professionals go into the local media and you know, publicity and materials and clinical guides. And we work with schools and with patient associations. But it is very important also to think on the individuals, on the citizens, and facilitate them access to better healthcare resources so they can be aware of how important it is that they take care of themselves.
Thank you very much. We have other questions about risk selection, donc la sélection des risques. Il y a eu plusieurs questions posées où on a le sentiment dans les systèmes que vous décrivez que les réseaux ou les systèmes cherchent les bons risques des patients healthy patients. Donc qu'est-ce qui se passe? Est-ce que c'est vrai d'abord? Est-ce que c'est vrai à Kaiser? Est-ce que c'est vrai dans les systèmes que vous avez vus? Did you see some risk selection or not? And what about those very old patients with a lot of morbidity? Are they inside the system or are they left outside the system? Who wants to answer? Molly, you want to start?
So,
and after that?
One of the reforms in the Obama healthcare reform was to say you couldn't turn anyone down, right? Which is great. So we can't discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. We fully support this. So our population pretty much reflects the population of the U.S. Median income is the same as the median income of the U.S. So I'm sorry, the second part of the question. What was the second part? There was a risk.
It was how do you deal
Yeah.
with the very fragile
yeah.
person, very old person with a lot of morbidity? It's more difficult to have a populational approach with those persons, very
So-
standardized approach.
Yeah. I mean, I think with capitation, it's better because instead of sending that patient to 10 different doctors, they're often in the same medical center, coordinated, and all the doctors are looking at the same record. So in terms of the actual medical care, I think it's easier to coordinate that. There's a whole issue of long-term care when it's no longer something that you can make better and they just need custodial care. And I think we better not go there because we have an insufficient system for that in the United States.
Thank you. And in Spain, in Valencia?
Yeah, from a clinical point of view, I mean, it's important for you to understand our model, our contract. We need to, we must take care of all our patients, so cherry picking is not something we are allowed to do. So if we are not able to provide ourselves with some service, then we will refer the patient to a tertiary, highly specialized hospital, and then we will pay for that. We'll pay the government for that, okay? So we are paid on a capitation, on a fee per citizen per year, and we have to cover everything out of that capitation. The services that we provide are agreed upon with the government. We are delivering public health care. So we cannot start a service without permit from the government. Okay, so the service portfolio is agreed with the government. I will give you an example. If one of our citizens needs to undergo a transplant, we will have to pay for that. Okay? And when it comes to dealing with fragile elderly people, we have agreements with nursing homes, and our IT solution, our electronic medical records, we implement that electronic medical record for free to give access to the nursing home, to the clinical record of the patients. And if where the nursing home is located, most likely there will be a GP surgery nearby. So we assign the patients living in that nursing home to one of our GPs in the surgery nearby. So there is a direct connection between the nursing home or the caregiver or the family taking care of the elderly. There is a direct connection with the GP and the community nurse, and everything is controlled, because at the end of the day, the system is one and the citizen is one. So it's for our best interest to keep control of that patient at all levels.
Can I just make a really small point about risk stratification? Small, but I think important. It's a two-edged sword. It has two purposes, really. There is the intervention role, identifying who you're going to intervene with quickly before they become a higher resource burner. But there's also the statistical element, so that you are comparing, as we've all said, comparing apples with apples. You need some way of understanding who are the people with the greatest health burden, so that when you're comparing the performance of your providers, you don't penalise them because they took more heavy users or more critical cases than the other people.
Juste une question, parce qu'on a parlé de capitation. We talk about capitation, payment. How do you fix the price in a capitation payment system? Can you explain in a few words, because time is
just
running,
very
but
shortly.
just explaining, because I think it's important to understand. How do you fix prices?
I wish we could
The
fix the
fees.
price, but it's the government fixing the price, and it is not. Unfortunately, it was originally fixed in the late 90s, so it's not risk adjusted at all. If we could change something, we would definitely try to readjust the fee that we get on a risk adjustment basis. Now that we have far more information and access to good data for risk stratification, but it is the government fixing the annual fee, and it is updated in line with the increase of the public healthcare budget or expenditure. Okay.
Okay, so that's different in the U.S. So the government decides what they'll pay us per member per month for the Medicaid, low income, and Medicare over 65 population. So we don't fix that. The government fixes that, okay? The individuals pay a certain amount, not based on health risk, but based on age. So there's one rate for 20 to 29, another rate 30 to 39. Under the Obama reforms, they said the top rate could only be 3 times the bottom rate, which was better. It used to be a wider spread. Okay, so that's how individuals pay. But as I said, that's a small percent. That's 9%. The 70% who come through employers in the U.S., that is experience rated. So it really depends on that employer's group and how much they used healthcare the year before. So it's not by individual, but it's by the group. So groups pay radically different amounts to health plans, not just to Kaiser. This is the U.S. model, based on their previous year's utilization, which gives the employers the incentive to try to keep their employees healthy and to, do some health promotion on site, which Kaiser can help with.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. On a eu beaucoup de questions, Madame Monod, pendant votre présentation, et puis on n'arrive pas à les imprimer toutes. J'en retiens 2 qui sont liées. Votre modèle a suscité beaucoup d'intérêt, donc cette pyramide avec les verts qui sont nombreux, les oranges, on doit essayer de faire en sorte que les verts passent par orange, que les oranges passent par rouge. Une première question, c'est autour du cadre réglementaire suisse. La LAMAL ne prévoit rien là-dessus. Est-ce que ça veut dire qu'il faudrait changer la LAMAL ou est-ce qu'il faudrait une réforme de la LAMAL? C'est la première question. Et la deuxième question, c'est que vu que la LAMAL ne prévoit rien, il n'y a pas de financement prévu aujourd'hui dans le système d'assurance maladie suisse. Donc, comment est-ce que ce système va être financé dans le canton de Vaud et comment est-ce qu'il devrait être financé s'il se généralise? Puis on vous laissera le mot de la fin avec ça pour ce matin.
Il faut utiliser le conditionnel. Alors, il y a tout un modèle de financement qui va vers une capitation ajustée au risque, c'est-à-dire dans les 4 régions de santé, un volume en lien avec la structure de risque d'une population. Ensuite, un bout de paiement pour la performance qui permet de fixer des objectifs aux régions et puis de manière incrémentale d'augmenter finalement une source de financement en fonction de l'atteinte d'objectifs value-based et qualité. Et puis un socle, mais qu'on cherche à minimiser, disons, dans l'incitatif qui est ce socle LAMAL, financement à la prestation. Donc au fond, aujourd'hui, l'État investit déjà beaucoup dans les hôpitaux, dans les soins à domicile, dans tout un tas d'autres prestations de prévention. L'objectif était là de compiler cet argent et de le réattribuer sous ces 2 logiques de capitation d'un côté, de pay for performance de l'autre. En fait, donc on est aussi sur un exercice de neutralité finalement en termes de financement, mais de réallocation dans quelque chose qui amène de la valeur et du changement. En fait. Mais voilà, c'est work in progress.
Comme partout.
Mais en tout cas, merci.
Merci beaucoup. Encore merci. Je vous propose encore d'applaudir. Merci beaucoup. Voilà, on arrive déjà à la pause de midi, la pause repas. Pour ceux qui